Yeah, I rent the house for $5,000 a month to someone like my cousin. Somebody's totally, or whatever, somebody I know is completely guilt-edged. I don't have to worry about them running around in the middle of the night. In fact, they pay up front. So everybody, then I come to you. Listen carefully. Actually, I would say, listen carefully. I bought this house for $500,000. My explicit costs are $60,000 a year. I'm renting the house at $5,000 a month. That brings in a revenue of $60,000 a year. I am breaking even. I am covering all my expenses. Now, the house may go up and down in value. That's not guaranteed. I'll just sit back and wait. But I know right now that I'm covering all my expenses. This house is costing me nothing. All right, true or false? Am I covering all my expenses? In terms of this is exactly how an accountant would talk. They're covering all their expenses. But are we covering all our expenses? Yes or no? Were you going to say something? Flickering?
I guess there was the initial outlay on that.
Yeah, there's the initial outlay of $100,000. We're covering, now an accountant would do this. We're not being critical of accountants here, but you've got to be a little bit sharp to know what the accountant's doing. The accountant will say, here's your explicit, here's your outlays, and here's your revenue, and you are breaking even. And that's the page, the sort of balance sheet at page 1. You've got to turn the page to discover that, in fact, your outlay of $100,000 is bringing you in zero. You're basically getting zero return on your $100,000. This is not a good thing. You might as well, if you could borrow money at 10%, you could probably lend a mortgage at 10%. Better for you not to buy the house. Now remember, you might think, well, the house will go up in value. Don't count on it. It might not, but that's not what's at issue here. Basically, you could have had taken your $100,000 and lent it at 10% and made $10,000 a year, right? But you're not doing that. You're making zero. You're not making income. So that is called an implicit cost. It is a cost that you're paying of the resource, or what we call the factor production that you've got to take into account. Just as, for example, I could maybe be covering my capital costs, but it turns out I did all the work myself, cleaning the house up, fixing the house up, managing the house, and I'm not being paid. Well, that's, again, I should take into account my labor. So again, first thing to recognize when we do any of these calculations, you must calculate all your stuff. I sometimes mention, I have a friend, who was a really close friend, then he married this woman I couldn't stand, but that was the end of that. But the thing was, one of the reasons I couldn't stand her was, she wanted to be busy doing something. So she's had some kind of business she set up. Chocolate. She lived in a different city now. Some sort of chocolate shop or something. And she was delighted. Her chocolate shop was making money, like barely making money. She was covering the cost of bringing in chocolate. Now this guy was a lawyer making big money during the week, and on the weekends, he was working like 16 hours, 2 8-hour, 10-hour days in the chocolate shop, working for nothing. So she was saying, hey, look, my chocolate shop's making money. And I was just like, hey, burn the shop, put this guy to work as a lawyer for 2 days, and you'll have some serious money. This is a complete waste of time. The guys that should be worth $50 an hour, he's not even getting one. So this is, again, an opportunity cost issue. Okay, but for us, and again, clarify, for fixed costs, we mean in general in this, it doesn't have to be, but this is the way we're going to do it. Fixed costs are the opportunity cost of capital. I might have asked you in one of your questions, this question. What is the opportunity cost of capital? Now, let's think about it. I put up $1 million in a factory. Wait a minute. In a year, I could sell the factory, right? I could rent out the factory. Basically, my opportunity cost of the factory is not the $1 million I put out, because I might be able to sell the factory for more than I bought it, right? The opportunity cost, that which I cannot ever get again, or have a chance at, is whatever I could have made on my capital during that year. So if, in this case I gave you, this person bought the house, they could have made $10,000 on their $100,000 That is the opportunity cost of the capital. Everybody? So when I talk about fixed cost, it doesn't mean, it's the opportunity cost of the capital. It doesn't mean it's the total $1 million. It's the interest rate, or sometimes we call it the rental rate of capital, or we say the opportunity cost of capital, or the average rate of profit, any one of these terms you do, times the total capital. Everybody? So just think about it. When I have a business, what does it cost me in a year to run this business? Well, I put up $1 million. And really we should be calculating an opportunity cost of capital on the money put out to buy raw materials, to hire the workers and so on. But for simplicity's sake, to be charitable, I'll say that. Economists don't do that. They just say, the opportunity that we get the rate of profit on the fixed capital, we don't worry about a rate of profit on the wages we've advanced and the raw materials we've advanced in the loan. So basically, if I put up $1 million and the opportunity cost of capital is 10%, I must make $100,000 this year. Now the accountant doesn't put that in it, doesn't put that down on the page. The accountant doesn't say my cost is $100,000, but the economist does. So for example, in the example I gave you about the mortgage, an accountant just says 60,000 in cost, 60,000 in revenue, you make zero, and if you turn the page, that's a 0% return on $100,000. If you have enough sense to do that, a lot of people don't have that. The economist says, forget turning the page. On page 1, we're putting down $10,000 as an additional cost. It's the opportunity cost of capital. So actually, this house cost me $70,000, and I made 60. In that respect, it's very clear I'm losing money. Everybody? So the accountant just gives what we call operating profit. The difference between the revenue you get today and what you expend today, as it were explicitly, and then on the next page compares that operating profit with the total capital to figure out a rate of return. We figure out a rate of return on the capital and plug it in at the beginning as an opportunity cost. All right, everybody? That's important. And we call that here, in the first year, the fixed cost. So, let's look at it. What does it cost me to run this firm, to do this? The labor I hire, the raw materials, the fuel, all that stuff added up, plus the opportunity cost of my capital in this year is the total cost of running this firm this year. It's that simple, right? But divide them into those two pieces. And then, let's think about this, everybody. Another fundamental thing. If I want to produce, I'm a cotton cloth factory, if I want to produce one more bolt of cotton cloth, I need to hire more labor. I've got to spend more. I need to hire more, I need to buy more raw cotton. I need to use more fuel. What about the capital, people? What about the capital? The fixed cost. It doesn't change. When I set up my factory at the beginning of the year, my $1 million factory, opportunity cost $100,000 because that's 10% expected rate of return of capital for $1 million. $100,000. If I don't hire anybody, it costs me $100,000. If I hire millions of dollars of labor and use a lot of millions of raw materials, it's still my fixed cost is $100,000. So when you think about it, what happens is, we're going to see this, the more firms, if firms produce nothing, they're stuck with the opportunity cost of their capital. It keeps liquidating things overnight. But the more they produce, say for example GM, you go to that plant, it's $1 billion plant, say, which means, and the rate of return they expect is 10%. So they expect to make $100 million this year on that plant. If they produce one car in the plant, it's costing them $100 million this year. If they produced 100 cars, it's costing them average fixed cost $1 million a car. If they produce 1 million cars, it would cost them $100 a car. That's because if the plant can do that, right? So the more the plant produces, you would call this overhead. The overhead is spread over the output. Good. So the more the plant produces, the cheaper it is per car, the fixed cost is spread out. But we know the more the plant produces, the more labor that is hired, the less productive is the labor beyond some point. So essentially, it becomes more, at some point, it becomes more expensive for each additional car, simply because of marginal costs. And we're going to put all this together. We can put all this together. So, There you go. Explicit costs, implicit costs. For us, this is going to be essentially labor, fuel, and the like. This is going to be the opportunity cost of capital. Doesn't have to be, but that's it. Fixed costs don't change with every change in output. They're the opportunity cost of capital. I'm going to call them this. They are R, which is the average rate of return, the opportunity cost of capital. This will be like a percentage as a decimal, 0.1, 10%. Everybody? So capital is whatever it is, it's a million. Please, don't confuse capital and the opportunity cost of capital and the fixed cost. Variable costs, they change with every change in output. If you produce one more unit, you need more of these. They include the cost of labor. We're going to write it down like this. The wage rate times L. But also the cost of fuel and raw materials, which we include labor. Now, this is pretty good. This is a basic way to approach things. This is how economists do it. Now, the classical economists did not do it this way because they always understood. Think about it this way. Supposing I'm producing a tractor of a certain type, and supposing the tractor takes a month to produce, like, first of all, I've got to get the sort of inputs into it, the engines and all this kind of junk, from somewhere else. And then I get my plant to assemble, and it takes about a month to assemble this thing. And then it takes another month to move it down the line to somewhere where it might, to a retail place where it might sell. It takes another month. Notice, I just put up to produce this thing in labor and fuel and raw materials, $100,000. And I'm sitting on that. I don't get that back. The $100,000 was advanced, and 4 months later I sell the tractor and I get it back. Now, in good practice, you want a rate of return on that. If the average rate of return is, say, 10% a year, you want 1/3 of that in 4 months. But we don't do that. We just calculate the rate of return only on the fixed capital. Everybody? This is not as sophisticated as it could be, but that's fine. All right, so total cost, then, notice everybody, don't be fooled. The total cost of a firm is the cost of all those inputs that you need for every additional thing, like fuel, raw materials, actually depreciation. We can make this more sophisticated, I'm not going to do it. We won't talk about depreciation just now. And labor. And of course, what we're going to do is we're going to let L stand for all that stuff. So you might say the wage rate is actually $20, but it's really $30 if you include the raw materials and fuel that you need for every hour of labor or day. And this W is the wage rate per hour, per day, whatever it is. Okay, so this is then the total capital advanced for the fixed capital, the machinery and the buildings. And this is the opportunity cost of capital. Okay, guys. Now, this next little move I'm going to do here is actually painfully simple. But it turns out, if I didn't do it now, and I put it on an exam, most of you wouldn't be able to do it, because you don't step back and look at first principles. Well, I'm going to give you some information, and you're going to tell me what's going on. Let's see now. Suppose that I set up a cotton factory, that I buy a cotton factory. I buy a cotton factory for $10 million. This is the machines, the land, the buildings, and that the average rate of return, opportunity cost of capital, blah, 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 is 10%, for simplicity's sake. This year, I hire 50 workers at $10,000. Okay, $10,000 for the year each. Okay, and that say includes the cost of fuel for them, the cost of the raw materials, and so on. For the whole year, this is the year. and I produce 5 million units of commodity such and such, right, of nails, say. I'll say hardware, something like that, right? Whatever it is. All right, are we ready? Now, what is the variable cost this year? What is the variable cost this year? We could say total variable cost, but I just say variable cost, total variable cost. What is the total variable cost this year? Yes, go ahead. $500,000, everybody, right? We look at labor as that which changes variable, so it's equal to 50 times 10,000, which is equal to 500,000. You're going to see something like this in the exam. I insist that you know how to do these basics. What is the fixed cost this year? Huh? Oh, Laura. You're sharper than that. What is the fixed? Oh, is it million? It might be. I'm sorry, Laura. I didn't know the numbers. Apologies. She's absolutely right. It is R times K, which is 0.1 times 10 million, which is $1 million. Everybody? Okay? This is the total expense of the firm this year. That's it. Okay, now then. What is the total cost this year? What is it? WL plus RK equals what? Are you a little intimidated by the fact you're going to get your exams back? You did well in the exams. Which delights me, as I said, when I walked around and saw some of the answers, I went, oh my God, this is hopeless. But in fact, it wasn't, so that's wonderful. But let me see now. Not being able to figure the total cost per year is not wonderful. What is it? 1.5 million. Okay, good. Then, what is the average cost of each unit? What is each unit, the average total cost, I'll say? And it is what? Something like here. It's 1.5 million divided by 5. What'd you get out of that? 0.3. 0.30 cents per unit. Everybody? Yes? Good. All right. What is the average fixed cost? Which means, what is the fixed cost? Which is, of course, the fixed cost per unit. What is that? What is the fixed cost per unit? 27 cents? 20 cents. Okay, so the fixed cost is 1 million divided by 5 mil, right? Which is 20 cents. What is the average variable cost? Variable cost per, you divide this by quantity, so it's fixed cost divided by quantity. And that, of course, is 0.5 divided by 5, which is 0.10. So first of all, notice, I hope you can prove this. If you can, we will. The average total cost is the sum of the average fixed cost and the average variable cost. Now don't be asleep with me. This stuff is totally serious. This is it. This hour, you have to focus. If you're drifting, pull it together. I need you to figure this out. All right? Okay. Now, suppose suppose that the firm can produce, I know, let's see, can produce 10,000 Okay, suppose that the firm hires one more unit of labor. You see with the one more worker for the year. That's, worker for the year at the going rate. And the worker produces 20,000 units. All right, everybody? Good. What is the marginal cost per unit? What is the marginal cost per unit of the extra 20,000 units? Yes? Yeah, 50 cents, everybody. You hire, this is all going on. You hire an extra worker for $10,000 who produces 20,000 units for you, so each unit costs you 50 cents. All right, so it's equal to the change